caption, share my screen. Okay. Well, it's a way for me to share my other screen. Oh, never mind. Let me start with this one. So, last week we have introduced the basic skill sets about how to load a network and how to draw the network by yourself. And what you can also try to explore the way to modify the features of the section and build the fundamental movements at intersections. And the next step we need to know is if we have the network, if we have the network to represent the geometry of the realistic transporting system, how we're gonna load the traffic to the network. And that requires us to first specify the centroid, which will be defined as the center point of the traffic analysis zone. And those would be the points where the vehicle will be generated or where the vehicle will exit the network. So we're gonna use the same network we developed last time. And let me just try to bring out the one that we developed. So in the tutorial, I guess we build a network. And if you have that one, just feel free to include or open the network in your computer. And we're going to see how to complete the full simulation. And I will try to remove this one. This is the freeway example that we designed. And also, you may know that this one is a little bit large, so we can try to cut in the section. If you think that the section is too long and you want to divide them to multiple sections, there's a trick for you to cut it. So this is like you see the knife sign here in the toolbar. It's called the divide the section into two, and we cut it multiple times, you get multiple sections. So you need, before you use this tool, you need to select the section. Once it's selected, you're going to cut it, and now it becomes two sections, which you can see here. I just want to show you how we can build a network in this area. So let me just try to remove all the sections that is outside the screen. So let me just delete them. And now we have an intersection. And next thing we want to do is build a centroid to identify where the vehicle will be loaded and where the vehicle can exit the network. So in order for you to generate a centroid, you need to choose this symbol, which is called the create a centroid symbol. And with that, you can place this centroid at any location, which is close to the position you want to specify as the center of the TSZ zone. So I'm putting it here to represent the vehicle entering the network through this link and exiting from this link. So but this is not done. You haven't specified how this centroid connect to the network. So what you need to do is that you have to either double click this centroid or right click and choose the property. And choose in this property, you can, in this window, you can define the features of the this centroid. Well, you can specify the name, say that this centroid 1, and you can also specify the external ID. This is just a reference for you to use for the future to define the OD matrix to call this centroid in the APIs and so on. So I will say this one. Well, I also define the external ID as 1. You can specify your own name. And now you need to check how this centroid is connected to the network. So what you need to do is trying to, let me try to make it larger. you try to define a new connector, a centroid connector, specify new, and then choose the link you want the centroid to connect to. So the if you choose this one, it will automatically indicates that the vehicle will generate from the centroid and enter to this section. And this means that this will tell you the generate to this section, and the section number is you can see the section number is guess this one is 379. That will be the section number you connect to. And also, if you want this centroid to be the position where the vehicle can exit the network, for example, exit from this section, then you need to define another connector, which would be the exiting connector, and choose a new one, and select this intersection. And this would be the attraction link, attraction centroid link, that all the vehicles which will exiting this link will enter to the centroid and finish their trip. So with that, those will be the fundamental information you need to know about generating the centroid and connect to the network. And of course, you have the more options. Like one of the most important things is about the OD routes. You need to, if one centroid is connected to multiple links, I mean, it has multiple links to deliver the vehicles, then you have to specify what's the percentage for those vehicles to drive at each link. And if it's not set, then they will use the default method to divide them. So once you define one, click OK to complete this centroid. And then you need to specify the other centroid. And for this case, for this intersection, it will just be for 3 other locations we have to define. And let me say that this is a 2. This is second centroid, and I define the name as 2, and external ID as 2, and of course I will have the new link, generate attract from, and generate to, and click OK, and we'll create the other 2. So the node 3 and new one, which will be attract from this link and generate to this link. Okay, and get this one, and we have last centroid. And that will be 4 and new attract from, generate to. Okay, so that's the part about the generation of the centroid. The centroid is very important for you to specify, to define how many vehicles can be loaded to the network, which is one of the key part for you to define the OD matrix. Now, the next thing you need to do is like you have to go through the project to this all these options to define the demand file. So to define demand file, first you need to go to the demand data and enter demand data. There's a centroid configuration, and in this one, we as you have already defined the centroid, so you already have one kind of the centroid configuration. And what you need to do is right click this one and define a new OD matrix. So let me once you have the OD matrix, let's just say that this is rename it as period 1. And if we double click this one, you can define what kind of flow, what kind of demand you want to set up for this simulation. This tab shows the information we want to define for this OD matrix. The name of period 1, you can also specify the external ID, doesn't matter, that could be 1. And the contents would be the trip, and also you will need to define the initial time when the OD matrix will start and when it's gonna end. So this the default is 1 hour from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. Or you can also define your other values. And the for the units, this could be the vehicles or could be the individuals. If the individuals, it will be usually represent the pedestrian. And for the vehicle type, you cannot leave none for the vehicle type. What you need to do, you need to specify what kind of type you want to set for this OD matrix. For example, let's say this one is the it's a car, and then you specify what's the type of the vehicle and what's the period for this OD matrix. And the next thing you need to do is go to the cell. In this cell, you have to define what's the amount of the vehicles you have to load for this network. The vertical axis shows this this kind of column numbers shows the what's the origin, and this kind of row shows what's the destination. So you can see the true ID 416, 419, 422. Those would be the ID starting Aimsun, but you can also see those ID 1, 2, 3, 4, which would be the name we defined by ourselves. And you can also just choose a name if you want to make it simple. And now you can define how many vehicles you want to load from, say that from the origin 1, which would be the centroid here, to the destination 2, that will be centroid here. So you can type the value, and if you click this one, you can see where's the origin, where's the destination. So that's will give you the OD pair you want to set. Say that for this one, I want the flow. The flow would be, I just choose some random number, 500. And 1 to 2, say I want to get 1 to 3, I want to get 1,000. And 1 to 4, 300. And you can specify the values from the other directions, say that 100, 300, and 1,000. This is just some random number I defined. You don't need to. You can specify your own number. 1,500, 200, and 300, and 100, 800, and 200. So this would be one. This would be one. With this one, you have defined the how many of vehicles you want to load in that period from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. Click OK. You are done the define about the OD matrix in the first period, and you can also create another OD matrix, a new OD matrix. Say that the double click this one to modify the features, period 2, and that's the OD2. And you can say that at this time we want this be the taxi. Say that just one example, taxi would be a different type of the vehicles compared with the passenger cars. And you can specify the volumes. I'll just try to make it smaller, 50.
Excuse me, Professor.
500. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there is an intersection within a same traffic analysis zone. So, for example, 1-to-1. So, how would the centroid and
You mean the 1-to-1? Yeah. So 1-to-1 indicates the number of the vehicles traveling inside the zone. So usually for the microscopic simulation, we do not simulate them because it's inside the zone. There's no features. But for the microscopic simulation, we may need to think about it. But in general, we're gonna skip the the volumes inside the zone. That's the reason they want to put the gray colors for those cells with the same origin destination.
Okay.
So yeah, you can skip it as a well. Here I'm just trying to randomly set those values, as I don't want to put any fancy number here. For the just set, maybe just set all of them as 10. Is that I set another one, set another OD matrix, and click OK. So that will be the OD matrix. That will be two periods of the OD matrix. One for the passenger car, the other one for the taxi. And the next thing, the OD matrix is once you have OD matrix, but it does not mean it's done. The next thing you need to do is trying to define the demand file, which will be the actual demand that you need to load for this network. The OD matrix defined here is all the possible ODs, all the possible demand, maybe at a different time of the day for different type of the vehicles, but it may not be applied to this simulation scenario. So what you need to do is define, go to the demand data, this kind of parent folder, and right click, choose the new, and select the traffic demand. Once you have the traffic demand, there's an child folder for you to define the traffic demand. And for the first one, you can also specify multiple traffic demands. That totally depends on you. For this case, you can also rename it, and let's say that test demand 1. And then you can either right click to get the property, or double click this one to get the to specify, to define the traffic demand. And now you can see that this is the new name I defined, and you can specify the name, the external ID, say 1, doesn't matter. And for now, you don't have anything in your traffic demand file, so you need to add the demand items, which will give you opportunity to select the OD matrix you have specified. So choose the add demand item. You can choose one or multiple of them. If there will be multiple, if they are put sequentially, they will be set in the same. They will be set in the same class. If they are different type of the vehicles, that will be two different kind of the type of the vehicles you're going to model. So if we choose this one, you can see what it does look like. So you have two kind of the vehicles will be models, the car and the taxi. For the car, the total number of the car you want to load in the network is 6,300, and for taxi it's 320 in 1 hour. So that will be the total amount of the vehicles you want to load in 1 hour. And if you want to reduce the amount, say that if you want to reduce this one to just 50% of them, you can modify the factor. Choose this one and modify the factor to 50%. And if you want to increase the taxi amount and taxi volume, you can increase the amount. For example, you want to increase about twice, you set them as 200. Then what it will have is that you will have 640 taxi models, and for the car, you only have 3,150 vehicles models. So that's the part. And if we want to have some additional, say that if we want to simulate for longer time, you can set it as 2, change the duration to 2 hours, and add a demand item, say that the period 1 or period 1, and they will be added automatically behind the car. And say that you want the period to be, the factor to be much smaller, like 20%, it's also fine. And with that, you will have, for these 2 hours, you totally model 4,410 vehicles. Well, you can also define new matrix under the OD matrix folder, and you can use the existing one by changing their factors, which would be the levels of the demand. And now with that, once you have finished everything, you can then try to save it. Click OK on the save it. But before we jump to that, you can also check some summaries about how many vehicles you are actually modeled. This would be the number of the vehicles you are modeled for the car, and if we change the type to taxi, you can see how many vehicles will be modeled in the 2 hours. And if you choose all, you can see the total number of the vehicles loaded from all the origin destination pairs. And if you want to see what happens about the in the figure in the chart, this could be the one in the profile. So that will be the total volumes you model in the first hour and second hour, and you can put them in the car. If the value changes, and you can also go to check what's the values for the taxi. It's only loaded for 1 hour. So once you have finished the definition and you make sure that all of them are correct, then you can click OK. So with that, you are done the definition of the OD matrix, and that's how we're gonna load the traffic to the network. And by the way, for this kind of OD matrix, there will be different type of the vehicles you're gonna select, and you can also define new type of the vehicles and enter the subfolder of the vehicle, and you can specify new type. Now what we have is a bicycle, bus, car, motorbike, pedestrian, taxi, and truck. And you can specify a new one by click this one. Click this one, choose the right click this one, choose the new vehicle type, and double click this value. You can specify the name of the vehicle type. Say that our test vehicle, and there will be some features for this vehicle. It could be the what's the length of this vehicle, and what's the width of this one, what's the maximum desired speed, the minimum desired speed, the maximum desired speed, mean values, and the capacities and seating capacities. All those things can be changed. And also there will be some dynamic models you can try to identify. So this would be the values related to your car following and lane changing behaviors. And also the reaction time. What's the reaction time? What's the regular reaction time? Reaction time at the stop sign. Reaction time for the vehicles in the front at the traffic. So this is the one in the front of the for front vehicle at the traffic, and what's the probability? How many of them follow this definition? If you have more distributions, you can specify the other type of the reaction time with respect to a certain probability. And also they have the similar definitions of reaction time for the mesoscopy simulation. And the emission models, what kind of emission models you're going to use. Those would be the details about the vehicle dynamics control and performance evaluation. So I will not go through the details. There will be too many details. So for this part, I would recommend you to read through the manual. And it's only necessary when you have to use this information for your research. And there are also something about the microscopy models, the coupling model, lane changing model, two-way overtaking model, and some static models. How we're gonna consider the static features of the individual vehicles and the what kind of attribute you're going to set. Again, I will not go through the details for this one. It's just a part of the just some detailed features there. With that, you can also, once you define a new type of the vehicles, well, you probably can change the type to the new one you defined. we'll see that I have the new vehicle type is test vehicle. You can change the taxi to test vehicle if you want to do any modification tracking about those vehicles. And then click OK. You do automatically change those features. And so that's the that's for the demand file. And this is actually one of the very important parts to which will be related to our research, the topics in this class. And the next thing you need to think about is the control plan. So how are you going to control the infrastructures on the road? So in this case, we at least have one intersection, and we want to define this intersection as a signalized intersection. Then what we need to do is that we have to define a signal timing plan for this intersection. At the current stage, we do not have any plan, so all the vehicles will just arrive there and they're gonna stop there. But we want to define a plan for this intersection.